Hi, welcome to the Israel First television program with myself, Martin Blackham, from our studios in Jerusalem, bringing you news and interviews from the land of Israel. And in the Jerusalem Post, it says, red zones delineated as corona death toll hits 300. And the Jerusalem Post said the towns in the south and areas of southern Tel Aviv face an immediate lockdown and were designated red zones by the coronavirus cabinet. The move came as the number of coronavirus cases in Israel continues to spike, increasing by more than 200 within 24 hours. At the last count, the number of active cases was 3,019. This is as we've come into the studio, including 34 in a serious condition. 24 of whom are intubated. Israel is averaging about 200 new patients every day, the same amount it had during the first outbreak. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says if it continues, we will restore restrictions and the economy will stop. And he uses the Hebrew acronym MAMI. He said the public should remember to wear masks, keep a distance of 2 meters and wash hands. And in the studio today, we have a very special guest, Yonatan Yagodovsky from Magen David Adom. Great to have you, Yoni.
Hello.
You couldn't come last time because of the coronavirus that we're facing because we had a lockdown. And so we really appreciate you coming into the studio today. We're not wearing masks just for you to have the pleasure of seeing our mouths move, but it is a regulation at the moment in Israel. Yonatan Yagodovsky is the Director of Fundraising of the International Relations Department of Magen David Adom in Israel. He's also a spokesperson, was previously the manager of the Magen David Adom station in Jerusalem. He's been on BBC News, CNN, CBN News, I24 News, in the New York Times, the Jerusalem Post Times magazine, and the Times of Israel. So maybe we can start off, Yoni, with your background. How did you begin in Magen David Adom? Maybe you can tell us a little bit about the organization, and then we'll talk about the current crisis and how you're adapting.
So Magen David Adom is just celebrated 90 years, just a few days ago. Was established in 1930 in the young city of Tel Aviv as a community service, voluntary service.
That's before the State of Israel even.
That was about 18 years before the State of Israel received its independence. As a volunteer organization that dealt with first aid, public assistance, etc., due to the needs of the growing population, and eventually became the medical corps of the becoming State of Israel, again based on volunteers. And we cherish this trend and this, let's say, history of the organization by activating tens of thousands of volunteers even now.
So it's quite different to ambulance services in other countries in the fact that you have so many volunteers who are working in the organization.
Pretty much so. And according to the Magen David Adom law that the Israeli parliament legislated in 1950, we are a volunteer-based organization. We are running the national pre-hospital emergency medical system of the State of Israel, the ambulance system, etc. We run the national blood services of the State of Israel with the Israeli Red Cross Society. We take a variety of missions within Israel, and we also assist other countries in need. And I personally joined Magen David Adom as a youth volunteer, as part of many that were before me, and more after I've joined in 1975 when I was in high school. And it was part of kind of Jerusalemite tradition that people who are teenagers, whether they go to youth movement, etc., and they study in high school, they also give some time as youth volunteers.
Was that kind of like part of national service? Because that's something that in Israel that you do, that there's national service. Was that part of that, or is it?
No, it's a different concept.
Right.
National service is after you graduate from high school. Mm-hmm. People can choose whether they go to a full army service or they give their time for a year or two or more in volunteering in a variety of organizations, including, by the way, in Magen David Adom.
And then you became the station manager of the Jerusalem station, and amazing that.
My career in Magen David Adom evolved, most of it in the beginning at least, unplanned. I enjoyed what I'm doing. I was well trained. I had my army service also was in the medical corps. I was a medical trainer in the medical corps, which I did for many, many years after that, after mandatory service in reserve. And Magen David Adom in the beginning was kind of, after I finished my army service, was kind of a part-time job. And it grew up on me. I became a trainer, I was a paramedic, I was dealt in training and so on, emergency medicine, developments that follow the organization and modernization of the organization, eventually ended up becoming the director of the Jerusalem region, and now in my present position.
Right. Now, when you were in charge at Jerusalem, that was the time when there was the suicide bombers and there was a lot of terror attacks at that time, and you had to deal with that. Now you have another crisis. It's like there was that crisis, and now this is like a hidden terrorism with the coronavirus. Were Magen David Adom able to prepare for it in some way, or was it something you had to quickly adapt to?
Well, I think there were two approaches within the organization. We are responding to emergencies, and therefore we are training ourselves to be ready to any given emergency. For us, let's say the transition between routine and emergency situation is one phone call that informs us there is a major problem here. It can be of one patient, it can be of multiple people. So, and that's the core of the work of the organization in any spectrum, whether it's with the volunteers, with the paid personnel, the ambulances, the blood services, in our dispatching centers, etc. So when it was clear that Israel will be exposed to the COVID-19, and it started with a group of Israelis that were traveling somewhere in Asia in a vessel, and this vessel, that more and more people were diagnosed with COVID, and they were flown into Israel after several weeks. We collected them at the Ben Gurion airport, took them to the hospitals. It was really clear that we need to reshape. The reshaping took less than a day, because then the following day, which was February 22nd, it was clear that a group of pilgrims from South Korea that visited Israel and they were already at home, many of their people were tested positive, and they were all over the country. They were touring for more than a week, like any other pilgrim throughout the country, and many people were exposed. Add to that the fact that Israelis was taking vacations in Europe, there was a ski season and a football season, etc., and people became to come back, and they were tested positively, and Magen David Adom was asked by the Ministry of Health to be the forefront of the fight of the coronavirus in front of the general public.
If you've just joined us, we've got Yonatan Yagodovsky in the studio, and we're talking about the coronavirus in Israel. You can also get involved with Magen David Adom, and the information's on the screen as to how you can contact them to help. They need your help and support. Now, one of the things that happened was that there was a call center. I remember, I watched, like everybody else in Israel, watching the news. We saw that Magen David Adom immediately set up a special call center just for this particular pandemic.
Well, our call center is extremely advanced. All the technologies were developed in-house, and we have really a fantastic national system that whoever needs us can either click on a button on the screen of his cell phone and get to our app and get immediate access to the system, and we know exactly where they are calling from, the exact geographic location, and if this person uploaded information to the app, we know of his medical background and etc. But our answering time at that time to any call was within, give or take, we were very humble, 2 to 4 seconds. All of a sudden, we saw an increase in incoming calls. Instead of having 6 6,000 calls, 6,500 calls a day, we began to see 20,000.
Wow.
And 40,000, up to a peak of 82,000 calls a day from concerned Israelis asking questions where they can be receive swab tests, how they can do it, what are the restrictions, and so on.
How on earth did you sort out there's somebody who was, say, for an example, in a car accident and needed someone there, like now, and then you've got somebody who's got a fever, who hasn't felt well yesterday at work, and is just phoning for out of concern?
Well, the concept was the same concept as receiving a call of multiple catastrophe, but for the long run. That's the main difference. So we increased the number of call takers, trained call takers, from, let's say, 60 a day to more than 500 a day.
Wow.
We opened up tents and we installed all the electronics. Schools were off. So next to our National Dispatching Center, there's a high school. We got it from the municipality. Companies that had, tourist companies that had call centers and were closed, gave us their premises. So were able to duplicate the system. And when you called and dialed 101, which is our national emergency phone number, you could choose between I'm calling for a COVID and click 1, or I'm calling for a general emergency, click 2. And automatically the calls were diverted to the call takers that worked with you. And if you made a mistake, it's okay. It's the same system. You will get the same service without any delay.
Wow. And now the call centers were handling a lot of calls. How was it for the volunteers? Because you, as you said at the beginning of the program, you work with volunteers who come and work in Magen David Adom. Did you suddenly have to start special training, or how did you adapt with all the staff and everybody had to suddenly get up to speed with what was going on?
So the additional assignment that we received was to conduct all the swab tests all over the country. It's not something that we are trained to do. So we had to train the teams how to do it properly, how to wear properly the protective gear because they're all exposed. We were moving from home to home and doing the swab tests at home, by that preventing people who might be sick from mixing up with the general public and going to clinics and hospitals.
Right.
So we trained the swab teams that are, by the way, continuing doing it. We did hundreds of thousands of tests throughout the country, followed by opening up drive and test facilities all over the country, fixed one and portable ones, according to the outbreaks in different places. And we had to train our people to do it properly, carefully, so what they're doing will be tested well and the results will be correct. Again, making sure that they're safe, they're using all the techniques and mechanisms and so on. We developed technologies for identifying each and every swab test with the patient and with the patient's HMO, so they will receive the results correctly from the laboratories. There was a lot of ongoing training, and we still do that. But the volunteers were our flesh and muscles, because without them, we couldn't do what we are doing. Luckily, many of the working places were closed for a long time in Israel. Schools were off. So people who were constantly volunteering, let's say once a week or once every 2 weeks, came every day. And by that, we were able to provide an outstanding service to the Israeli public.
So you've been doing testing, and you've also done testing in the Congo. I was reading that Magen David Adom were helping the African country of Congo to do some testing themselves.
So the philosophy of Magen David Adom is to assist whoever needs us. And we were assisting countries in need after disasters or wars, or in introducing technologies that we have developed for many, many years, let's say for generations and generations. And we received a request from the Republic of Congo that they want to learn from us how to activate the drive and test facilities and to have the technologies. And we were able to provide it to them, not by physically flying over, but for doing everything on Zoom and emails, etc., learning their needs, providing them with the protocols in French, of course, and the technologies and so on, and follow they opened up one facility, a very big one in Kinshasa, and we followed with them. We saw that everything is being done correctly. They know how to do it and utilize our experience and knowledge, and it's lifted up according to their needs, and it is working very well.
That's fantastic. And if you'd like to get involved with Magen David Adom, go to their website. It's very easy how they can donate or get in touch with you, how they could support you as a group, or if there's individuals who'd like to donate. All the information, I guess, is on the website. Is that right?
Correct. Magen David Adom is a unique organization in that manner. Even though we are a national organization, we are not funded by the government. And we rely on our own income from the services that we provide, and we receive the funds from the medical insurance in Israel. But in order to expand our services, to develop it, to get ambulances and medical equipment and supplies and build up a fantastic modern new blood services center, we rely on donations. And people from all over the world support us and assist us, and if they will Google Magen David Adom online or Christian Friends of Magen David Adom online, they will be able to assist us without any problem.
Fantastic. And now you also are in charge of Israel's blood drive, the collection of blood within Israel. How was that affected by the coronavirus? Did everything just keep running, or did you have to do things a bit differently?
We had to rechange the work from a few angles. First, there were restrictions on how many people can stay in the same place, and for example, a blood drive is in an open arena or a caravan that is parking in the middle of the street. Number two, we were concerned that we will face a major reduction in blood donation if more and more people will get sick. When you're sick, you cannot donate blood. So we proactively arranged blood drives even in high-rise buildings. We coordinated with the people there. We came in, opened up an arena. People didn't have to leave their home in order to donate blood, and on, taking into consideration that usually we do blood drive also in office buildings that were closed, in army bases there were restrictions, in community centers they were closed. So we had to reshape and to increase the level of blood collected. And we were able to do it. Why? Because of the Israeli public. They were willing, they understood the need, and they were open up their homes, open up any facility, and we were able to do it. Add to that the fact that when people began to recover from COVID, it was clear that they carry in their plasma antibodies. Antibodies, as known in the medical world, can assist other people who are sick. So we asked upon people that fully recovered, 2 weeks after they were fully recovered, to come and donate plasma in a process called plasmapheresis. And that plasma was tested for antibodies and handed to the hospitals for transfusions for people who were moderately to severely sick. And we saw that the outcome is very good. So altogether, our blood services were able to uplift the general needs and to assist in the fight against the spread and the healing, mainly, of corona patients.
Now, do you think there's been a lot of things you've learned or through the coronavirus pandemic as Magen David Adom, or do you think it's just because you're used to dealing with emergencies and you have to be ready for anything to happen, whether it's at the airport, something terrible would happen, God forbid, or an earthquake, you have to be ready for all these things. Do you think there's things you've learned through the coronavirus?
We are learning every day. Without learning, we wouldn't be able to develop the service, and the corona was a huge challenge for us, and we are still learning how to deploy the technologies, how to make sure that they're stable, even if there are huge peaks, not for a few hours, for days and weeks. How to utilize the human resources, which is the most important resource that the organization has.
I was going to ask, one of the things that you need to do is to be, you're the first responders in Israel, so you have to be there as the person is sick or have the accident, or you're the first person to arrive on the scene. Did suddenly everything have to change because of coronavirus, or did you?
Basically, yes, because it was clear to us that people who are dealing with all aspects of corona, our team members, cannot do routine work.
Right.
Ambulances that are transferring corona patients or taking our teams, the swab teams, to patients' location one after the other every day, cannot be included in the regular ambulance patient transportation.
Wow. Wow.
So we had to divide the teams. We had to make sure that those were, and knowing that there's always a chance that we will reach a patient who doesn't feel well, but eventually also exposed with corona. So we had to make sure that all of our teams are fully protected, and according to the front triage, go to the worst case scenario each time, even if it means that the teams has to be fully protected. Add to that the need to support the people, to make sure that they are not being exposing or endangering their family members by giving them proper guidelines and protection, etc., and following them, asking them, how do they feel? What is going on? Are you feel uncomfortable? Stop working with the corona. The complete opposite happened. The demand to be part of the swab teams and to work in the drive and test was extremely high. And we are fortunate for that. But we are learning how to manage the technologies, the medical equipment, the supplies, the needs. Now, we were ready because of we were lucky. We were extremely lucky because over the years, we received so much support from our donors. That's why we had enough ambulances, that they are now working very hard, even more than in a regular year. And we were able to provide this type of service without any delay, without any problem, because we were ready logistically, training-wise, and so on, and we were able to train ongoing. And we are thankful for the people who supported us all over the years, and we hope that they will continue to support us because it's still going on.
Right, you need to replace ambulances and you need to replace equipment, etc. So if you'd like to get involved and involved in purchasing an ambulance or replacing an ambulance, then get in touch with Yoni. He'll tell you exactly how they do that. Now, you have a very strict time frame. I remember you talking about is it the golden hour or the golden minutes, that you have to arrive at a patient and there's a certain amount of time you've got before things start to deteriorate very fast. Maybe you can tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, it came from the new concept of dealing with trauma patient, meaning physically traumatized patient from injuries. It was clear that people who are severely injured and they are bleeding internally, externally, they have head injuries or chest injuries and so on, needs to get to definitive care within less than an hour. Definitive care meaning the proper hospital and the proper departments in the hospital. So the ambulance teams needs to get to them within 10 minutes. And these are the two terms, 10 golden minutes and the golden hour, which is then the 10-hour part, the 10 golden minutes is the time to get to a patient anywhere in the country, treat them properly, and immediately start evacuating them by pre-alerting the hospital that will receive them, so they will be able to get ready. And with the technologies that we are using, we can send videos to the receiving hospital. They know how the patient looked like. What was the velocity of the energy of the car accident from the shape of the cars? What does this patient need? What is their vital signs, etc., so they can better get ready. By the way, These technologies we are using also for cardiac patients and stroke patients and people with other severe medical problems.
Yeah, I heard about that. That the doctors in the hospital can see the readings on the machine. Is that true?
Correct. Yeah,
Right.
we use certain types of telemedicine, and through the cell phone and the apps that our team members carry with them, we can pre-send all the data to the receiving department in the hospital, and they are getting ready. A hospital is like a huge, aircraft carrier. It takes time to turn it, especially in a heavy working day. We need to give them the time to get organized because we are there within 10 minutes. So by buying time, we buy time for the patient on one hand, and we make sure that the chain of survival continues. There are no gaps within the overall chain of treatment and survival of each of our patients.
And it's because of donors, it's because of supporters across the world, because of organizations, fundraising that you do, that you're able to continue the work. And if you'd like to get involved, then get in touch with Magen David Adom and get in touch with Yoni, and he'll tell you how you can get involved in some of the projects that they're doing. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Yoni, for coming across.
Thank you so much.
And we're still in the middle of, well, not in the middle, but we still have the pandemic, so you're still very busy. And
But as we say, we will overcome it, and we hope that people will get better, be healthy, go back to their normal lives, and their community will be stable again. Thank you so much for your work, your support, and for inviting me.
You're very welcome, and thank you for joining us today. If you'd like to get in touch with the program, don't forget you can email us at info@israelfirst.org. Visit the website www.israelfirst.org, and remember, we're the program that looks at the land, the people, and the language.